welcome back to the L1 show Links with Friends. Today is September 8th, 2023, and we're doing Robot and Nonsense and one more Which Would You Choose engagement challenge. This is the question. You're trapped in a room full of snakes, or you're trapped in a room full of spiders.
Can we guarantee yes or no on venomous?
Let's say some are venomous.
I think it's way easier to kill spiders than snakes, right?
Yeah, I think I would pick spider.
Go for
I don't
spiders.
like spiders, but snakes are...
What if it's the same mass though?
Be a lot more spiders.
Spiders versus it would just be an unmanageably large number of spiders.
But I think spiders still be easier to kill because they're like weak and brittle. Versus I think a snake you'd really have to beat on it.
Yeah.
And get it in the right spots.
That is true. I hadn't considered the ease of defending oneself.
Right.
Also, spiders aren't usually aggressive in the way that a snake can be. Like a snake, if it feels threatened, it will lash out at you, whereas spiders just try to get away.
Oh, I think a spider in a room like that with numbers, I think
they would band together to kill you.
Yeah.
But thinking of like fire ants, because fire ants is smaller than a spider, and they can take you down no problem.
Yeah, well, snakes can too.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Another thing to consider, what kind of furniture is in the room? Because I could elevate myself and a snake would have trouble getting to me.
I was imagining just a plain white room that just pops up in the scenario, the game versus the metaverse of the room, of the game.
Well, that would be a good question to run by ChatGPT.
Oh.
And ChatGPT, in order to learn those kinds of facts, it has to read a lot of books. But is that okay?
OpenAI disputes authors' claims that every ChatGPT response is derivative work.
But it wasn't a very good response.
I think their big thing that they mentioned in the article is like it doesn't give a source.
But they also, we kind of have to. It's easy to hate on, OpenAI, but we've kind of made similar arguments when it comes to copyright claims being too aggressive, right?
Yeah.
I would say that when you run something through a large language model and then it summarizes it or uses parts of it, that is transformative, don't you think?
I mean, maybe.
Probably, yeah.
It depends on how much it transforms it. If it's just spitting it out word for word and it's not giving a citation.
I don't think it'll do that.
Yeah,
maybe
it doesn't.
If it's something esoteric enough, maybe. There's not a lot of sources to draw from.
OpenAI claimed that the authors misconceived the scope of copyright, which I think probably was true in the case of Sarah Silverman's lawsuit. But
I don't know.
It's not clear cut one way or the other, I don't think.
To say that a robot is not allowed to read my book, it's weird. We're maybe going too far in terms of copyright protection there.
What was Futurama had a word for that, like robo-racist or something like that.
You just got us demonetized. And OpenAI is the leader in AI, but the user base is kind of dropping off, and the quality empirically is definitely dropping off. It seems like things are going bad, and this is all before they really have a valid business model.
OpenAI launches a ChatGPT plan for enterprise customers.
So I think this is lost in translation, but I think part of the thing here is that you could preload the chatbot with your own directives, but you could also fine-tune the weights based on giving it your own data, which I don't think a lot of enterprises would want to do.
Well, yeah, we've done several stories where they're like, please stop putting in actual real customer data or information about our company because it'll get spat out somewhere else.
Well, this would protect it just inside your own company, but then you have to worry about all of your employees having access to that. Do you trust everybody? How much is going to be regurgitated that you weren't expecting to be regurgitated to your people? Could definitely be a dangerous thing, but they are desperate for income. So
they said that they're not going to use anything for training and that everything is encrypted in transit and at rest. but they stopped short of saying you can run this on your own local hardware, which I think is what a lot of enterprises would want in order to be able to use it.
Well, the other tech companies are constantly nipping at their heels, and they're constantly announcing new language models.
Meta releases Code Llama, a code-generating AI model. There's already problems with it, according to this, but perhaps they'll get those kinks worked out.
I mean, we've already seen so many of these.
Yeah.
It's hard to define what separates this one from all the rest of them. But it's out there if you want to
It
use
will apparently write malware, if you ask it. Very nicely.
And this is what we alluded to in our first episode this week. The new embracing of artificial intelligence by our military. Now, I can remember not that long ago when they discounted warnings about this, saying, of course we would never do that. Just give something weapons and autonomy? Of course not.
AI brings the robot Wingman to aerial combat,
No,
but he
this is a
still has to
Wingman.
ask the pilot.
Yeah. It's totally different.
So this fella is going to fly next to your plane, and you're going to be able to give him, it's kind of like an NPC in a video game.
Yeah, your follower. It's your Lydia.
And they talked about using it in much the same way. So if you encounter, let's say, anti-air emplacements, just send the AI out in front. Let him fly a little ahead of you. Just to make
Let
sure.
him tank it, just
Yeah.
like Lydia.
And of course, if you get into a dogfight, I mean, imagine, you've always got a little guy that can break off of you and then get behind someone who's chasing you. Super valuable. You do have to worry about him forgetting that you're friendly.
I had the thought of like, what if it gets jammed or hacked or like, surely there's a way that it could be disabled. I'm sure that'll be the next race, right?
Oh, this is going to be terrible for you.
Oh,
But yeah, we don't just have new language models coming out, but we have new AI contenders, because right now, all of the AI game is right here in the USA.
meet Aleph Alpha, something who's trying to compete with OpenAI, and I know he's German.
Right. It's going to be the European hope for AI.
They said he was like, this was very much like a fluff piece because they're like, he's really good natured and a nice guy. And I was like, that's what they said about Sam Altman too.
I thought that this was somehow related to the funding that Germany was doing, because I'd read another article that connected the two, but nobody else has made the connection, so I don't know if that's really true or not. But there's a lot of things going on in Europe to try to, and if we look at what's happening with AI, it's mostly software. It's a little bit hardware, but it's not much hardware. And so Europe could actually excel, and Europe could actually have their own thing for AI, but this looks like an also large language model.
The tone of this article was, there seemed like a lot of hopium.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure that this will be just as good. We'll have one too. If it makes you Euros feel any better, I don't feel like I have any control or ownership over any of the language models.
No.
Just because they're here doesn't mean that they're for the people.
Not even a little.
And we also have the issue of what is real and what is AI generated, and how do we differentiate? Google has a solution, which makes me think that this is not really going to be a solution.
Google DeepMind has launched a watermarking tool for AI generated images. You read this article and then there's lots of talk about how this probably isn't going to be that reliable because it's a constant arms race.
Yeah. It just changes some pixels. It's not anything too crazy. And so once people are able to identify it for themselves, they will be able to remove it. Probably in the same way, in a way that you wouldn't know.
This just seems like a voluntary thing. It's like I'm going to voluntarily say that this image is public domain.
And that is how it's written in the article. You can choose to watermark your something as AI generated, but you don't have to.
Well, if you spend any time in Call of Duty game lobbies, there's a good chance that you're going to hear a lot of racial slurs and a lot of comments about your maternal entities in your life. Probably some homophobic slurs. And they are really, really keen to do something about that.
Call of Duty will use AI to moderate voice chat.
Every time there's an article like this, I imagine the Meet the Pyro video, and we're literally building the pyro goggles from the, for real life.
Now, right now, this will only refer you and your episode to an actual human moderator. But you got to think in the future that this guy will be able to enforce his when he detects something as well, right?
Yeah.
Just
Well,
kick
and
you right off.
they said that they're like, we're not going to get a lot of false positives because we also detect emotion and tone in your voice. And it's like, I don't trust that.
If you just coldly call people racial slurs,
Yeah,
it's
you
fine.
can't scream at them.
I was thinking more like, how do you submit the paperwork to prove to them that you have Tourette's?
Oh,
It's like, I can't be held responsible for things that I scream into the microphone because of my debilitating disease, which is perhaps legit, but how are they going to flag that on your account?
I think maybe at that point it's fair to just say, don't use the mic.
yeah.
Well, we've talked a lot about the death of content and the spiral of AI generated content going back into the language model and everything just becoming a gray slurry of nonsense. And it seems like that is rapidly approaching.
Life or death, AI generated mushroom foraging books are all over Amazon. This has been a hot discussion on the mycology subreddits.
I mean, I would be worried about it, right?
Yeah. Well, especially because these are books that are tailored to people who are new to foraging. And typically, like, you shouldn't learn just from a book. You should have a in-person teacher as well. But a lot of people will get these books as a reference guide, and they're, like, hilariously wrong.
So here we have some of the alleged mushroom books.
They had bits of them, and they read AI generated because they kind of repeat themselves a lot, and they're not totally clear.
And they run them through the ChatGPT detectors. I think like 85 was the lowest score, and some hit 100.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, this was produced on Tuesday, March 5th, because here it is in the logs.
Yeah.
How long until surgical journals fall victim to this?
Well, we have a story about that. That was good. That's a good segue. Oh, no, this isn't it.
Well, there's another thing that maybe we shouldn't leave this up to the robots, but it does. This is supplemental, at least at this point. So a human still has to check this.
Can AI detect wildfires faster than humans? California is trying to find out. A lot of stuff looks like wildfires, including clouds, as it turns out.
Steam. They found out that a
Campfire.
lot of false positives in this one.
It needs to be able to dispatch a drone on its own to go and survey the area where it thinks, like, nope, that was just a cloud. Everything's fine here.
Everything's okay.
What could possibly go wrong?
And AI is one of the big battlegrounds that we find in the Hollywood strike. And they made some concessions, but I don't think they went quite far enough to satisfy.
Hollywood studios release offer outlining wage increases, AI protections for writers.
Now, they wouldn't, as far as to say anything AI generated was not writing, technically, in their mind.
Well, because they can't copyright it.
It couldn't be, but for the purposes of, like, you know, rewarding somebody or paying somebody or replacing somebody. But they didn't say they wouldn't use it. So
How long? Do you really trust Disney or any of these big studios? I don't know that I would.
no, I certainly wouldn't.
No. There's some dark loophole in here that we just haven't found yet.
This is going to be another.
Yeah,
tough
this
one
is a
for you.
Wired article. It's got the paywall.
But this one has to do with, this is kind of actually the same thing as the mushrooms. It's things where we absolutely should not have AI generated content, and yet we're finding AI generated content.
The use of AI is seeping, and it's proving difficult to detect.
Into academic journals.
Yeah, I think I read this one. I don't know if I read it on Wired.
So
We need an academic journal to talk about superconductors and crystals and crystallization and lead appetite and blah blah blah. And it's okay, here you go, and then there's just a bunch of garbage.
The crystals is all just about like healing crystals. It's like hippie
Salt
stuff,
lamps.
woo woo. Yeah.
now, how do we know that this is ChatGPT content? With the mushrooms, it was still like there was no smoking gun.
I don't know. I thought it was pretty obvious.
I mean, it seems obvious, but I'm saying like it was not a guarantee. You
Right.
can run it through the detectors, but how do we really know? In this case, we know because they left in the phrase, as a large language model, I am not able to have opinions on these kinds of things. Like they were so lazy.
They didn't even look
They
at
didn't
it.
get that out of it.
Ooh.
So that's one instance where we know it's happening, but they suspect it's way worse than that. And what do you do about it? Microsoft also suffered a similar thing, and this was maybe the most blatant yet of obvious AI laziness.
Microsoft removed a set of bizarre travel articles made with algorithmic techniques, but it won't blame AI. So there was one article in particular, this article talked about, but they found at least like 14 others that had the same things, and Microsoft would only comment on the one.
Now, the big embarrassing one was they had this, like places, if you're going to Montreal, here's the restaurants that you need to hit up. One of them they chose was a food bank.
It's like, you should go to the food bank in Montreal. And I was like, oh.
The other really crazy things is one of them was a burger shop. And for
It was
some
like, yeah,
reason,
get a hamburger, and then it suggested McDonald's.
well, but they also chose to describe what a hamburger was. In case you were born yesterday, like what food critic would put this in their article?
A sandwich composed of ground beef patty, a sliced bun of some kind, and toppings such as lettuce, tomato, cheese, etc.
My favorite was the one where it described seafood as basically anything that comes from the sea that people eat.
Yeah, I was like, oh, it's a good idea to eat seafood. So
I too eat food, large language model.
it's shocking. And there's no value to any of this.
And that's the whole internet is becoming like that when you search for certain things, and it's exhausting.
But yeah, like you say, they will not admit that this was just completely done by AI and they don't care, even though it's right there in our faces.
Yeah.
And the whole
Looks
idea,
like the start menu is garbage. It's so obvious that this is done to juice somebody's analytics, and yet no one is. It's like
No one cares.
Yeah, it's like as a shareholder, maybe you'd want to know that the numbers that are on the dashboard that says that people are actually using this is really just lies that stem from the fact that somebody clicking on a start menu makes that number go up. Nobody actually wants it.
But the money line go up, and that's all that matters. Because I didn't have to hire a writer to write this.
yeah, but you didn't get anybody to actually go to any real restaurants or anything either.
Yeah, that costs money. You have to pay them, and you have to pay for the food. And let's just have an AI write it for us.
You think there was even one person who was reading that? It's like, so that's what a hamburger is.
I've been asking for years.
Somebody happens across that and is like, well, you know what? I was craving McDonald's, and I sought McDonald's, an article that had McDonald's out in it, and by gosh, now we're going to go to McDonald's. And it's just like, how did I even get here?
That's what they want.
Well, how long until the New York Times is all written by AI? Probably not long, but in the meantime, they're at war and they want the AI out of their newspaper, not writing it, but reading it.
The New York Times blocks OpenAI's web crawler with a tool OpenAI provided, so it's probably not really working.
I was going to say they'll probably just subscribe to the PDF and then call it a day.
Or get a written subscription.
Yeah.
And just scan them. And the dream of drone delivery, it's still somewhat nebulous. We don't have it everywhere. A few places, but Walmart is committed to it.
Walmart and Wing team up to provide the convenience of drone delivery. I thought it was Wing team, and I was like, huh?
Earlier this year, we reported that all of these projects were basically dead due to the economic slump. But every now and then we get another article that's like, we're not dead.
We're not dead yet.
I think
Don't
this
put
is
me in the car.
one Walmart in Texas.
Yeah.
Is anybody asking for this? Like,
I wouldn't pay extra for it, but I guess I wouldn't hate it.
in Texas, no less. Like, won't that get shot down?
Well, everybody from California moved to Texas, so they're probably going to lose their gun rights soon. Now, last week we talked about the cruise, or not last week, right? 2 weeks ago.
Whenever we did the news last.
We talked about the cruise fleet, and it was voted that they were going to allow more cruise vehicles. That literally that same day, Bad things happened.
California DMV cuts cruises fleet after San Francisco crashes involving its driverless cars.
So much like Tesla's, the cruise vehicles not good at identifying emergency vehicles.
Which is crazy because I would think you could just add some sort of sensor that would hear the siren.
So one of these guys was going through a green light. It had the right of way. But the thing about it is fire trucks can usurp that right of way because, fires. And plowed right into one.
If emergency vehicle, just stop. But they don't know. They don't know when the emergency vehicle's there somehow.
Also, they had another crash. And I think a human driver ran a red light and hit a cruise that same day. So the DMV has said, yeah, we know we told you that you could do this, but now we're going to cut you in half.
Jail back.
What if they just said that to the CEO?
It is amazing. It is amazing how when there's an emergency vehicle, like normal human drivers will just stop. They'll stop everything that they're doing, and the ambulance will be right behind them. And it's like you're gonna have to pull to one side so the ambulance can get away. Meanwhile, the ambulance behind the driver is just like wailing on their horn and trying to get them to move out of the way. It's like, what? I stopped. I'm not moving.
One of my greatest sources of vicarious anger is when I watch the police pursuit videos and there's people in the left lane with nobody to the right of them, and they just sit there when the cop is behind them. And the cops, I don't think, are necessarily supposed to pass them on the right. They do sometimes, but I think, the protocol is don't do that.
That's the rule for everybody, is you're supposed to pass on the other side.
And the people, they just sit there, just
oblivious.
Absolute morons in the left lane. And driverless cars, they have all the cameras and everything. And so we can do simulation. We can do research. In fact, Tesla wants to start training their cars with simulation instead of real data, which is a little bit scary. But it points out that our algorithms are dependent on the data that goes in, and you will get garbage out if you put garbage in.
Driverless cars worse at detecting children and darker-skinned pedestrians, say scientists.
Oh, didn't see that one coming.
Didn't we have a story several years ago where a Tesla hit a child? It was a simulated child.
That was a cruise, I think.
Yeah, it was in Texas, or it was in Vegas, and somebody threw a cardboard child in front of a Tesla, and it popped it 25 or 30 feet into the air. That was one of the things that made Elon Musk so angry that he wanted to buy Twitter to shut it down.
Also, remember the dog at the homeless camp?
Yeah.
But that's because they point out that most data sets are Caucasian adults. I mean, hopefully you're not putting your children in data sets.
Well, I would think you would. I guess, yeah, there's not, maybe, I don't know how they test all that, but there has to be a way you could.
Well, it turns out they didn't. That's how you do it. You ignore it.
Full self-driving.
If you wanted some hot 4K high quality communication with the space station, maybe you've got a loved one up there. The time is now.
NASA to demonstrate laser communications from space station.
Yes.
If you want to scroll the gram while you're in space.
I want laser SpaceX because that is going to be a lot of bandwidth.
Yeah. Way more bandwidth, way less latency. It's good overall, and it's working.
Maybe there's an astronaut listening to this broadcast right now.
While they shove a hose up their butt.
He's been in there a long time.
Take a little downtime. And the Kessler syndrome is definitely going to be a part of our future because we keep putting more and more trash into space. That's going to have consequences.
Clear Space One space debris cleanup target in orbit just got struck by space debris. It was I think it was pretty small as well, but because it was completely undetected until it hit it.
So there's a piece of rocket that's floating up there, and they were going to use that as the first test vehicle or the test debris for this spider vehicle that's going to go up and give it the hug of death and bring it down. But now it's been hit by another piece of something, and now there's even more chunks, so they're not even sure if the spider is safe to go up.
Fun times.
And this is why when the aliens pass us on the way to the space Buc-ee's, they're like, God, that place is a dump.
Don't go too close.
There's so much trash. It was a beautiful planet once, but not anymore.
And there's only going to be more and more trash because one man is making his mission to take over all spaceflight.
SpaceX's new Bandwagon program is a big threat to small launch providers.
Think rocket ride sharing. This is the new thing.
The mom and pop
But
launch
more
providers.
importantly, a different orbit. So this is higher than 90 degrees, mid-inclination. Or no. Mid-inclination is 45 degrees. This is higher than 90 degrees. So normally, SpaceX doesn't mess around there, but they found out that smaller space companies were trying to fill that niche, and they were like, no.
No.
We do
Space
that now,
monopoly.
too.
That is a good way to put competitors out of business.
And F's in the chat. It's been a long time since they tried. They tried again, and they failed.
Russia's first lunar mission in decades crashes into the moon.
This guy disappeared.
Ooh.
Poor guy.
Oh,
the
yeah, the
best.
scientist. I read about that this morning.
The second best scientist is now the best scientist in Russia.
And he can't be very confident in his future. It'll probably
It's
take a
dark.
long time to do another program, though, so he's got a few years.
Maybe things will have changed by then.
But on
Very
the other
dark.
hand, we have one great failure and one overwhelming success.
Woo! India makes history as Chandrayaan-3 lands near Moon's South Pole, and the first one to ever do it on the South Pole.
Which is what Russia was trying to do.
Ah, go India.
So the first thing they'll find on the South Pole is flaming wreckage. Well, I guess it's not flaming, but you know.
Oh, what's this junk up here? They just kick it.
And to moving into the crime section, we see more and more just devolving.
This is just nonsense, not crime.
And Chicago and San Francisco are two shining beacons of horror in our country.
Chicago TV news crew robbed at gunpoint while reporting on a string of robberies.
They took the camera.
Oh,
Wow.
I hope that footage gets out.
It should be like in the what was the Max Headroom TV series where they just get the camera on the thing and it's just always recording no matter what, and it's basically indestructible. That's what news crews need.
I'm sure that camera's probably in a thrift store somewhere.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard to fence.
Yeah.
It was probably branded with their station.
There's stuff on it. Where did this come from? Oh, it was in my grandma's basement.
And when if you're going to try to avoid the crime in Chicago, maybe you think, well, I'll see a baseball game. That should be safe, right?
White Sox shooting happened after a woman snuck gun in via belly fat report.
Ugh.
Ugh. That's like, have you ever been, you ever work as like a cashier or anything like that? You ever got the boob money?
No, I never.
No, it's terrible.
So yeah, this woman was apparently so fat that she was able to put the gun in between the fat folds. But that pro tip, don't try to store your gun that way. That's not good for gun safety because it went off inside the folds and shot her friend in the leg.
Oh,
Ugh.
ugh.
And moving off to the West Coast, it gets even worse. Now I will say I'm fascinated by watching. I prefer the Kensington, Philadelphia videos, but the Skid Row videos those are classic. Some people want to get out there and get the real experience.
City official forced to resign after offering doom loop walking tour of San Francisco.
It's the premise of this was not insane, but it was
This
just
is-
like, hey, let's go look at the doom loop where the spiraling real estate prices and the people are suffering in a lot of ways because we need to see that firsthand, and it was $30.
This is peak capitalism. Like, we could improve the horrible things that are happening, or we could charge money to go watch it.
Now, he claims he never really wanted to make money, and this was more of a political statement. That is a lie. You can make that statement without even bringing people there. You can just film it. He wanted his $30 per head.
Yeah, it's not just once.
And meanwhile, elsewhere in San Francisco, you have some federal buildings, but the problem is these federal buildings are surrounded by open-air drug markets. So if you're a poor government employee, what do you do?
Crime is so bad near San Francisco Federal Building. Employees are told to work from home, officials said.
Oh, we covered that week before last.
Oh,
Oh, did we?
August
All right.
14th? Wow. You know the name of the building?
Nope.
The
It
Nancy
was
Pelosi building.
Oh.
It was one of the federal buildings, though.
Right, it's the Nancy Pelosi Federal Building.
Fun times.
Unfortunately, not memorial.
She's
And-
hanging on.
Demonetized.
This is not a pro-criminal tip. This actually will not work, so don't bother trying this.
Florida woman doused herself in Mountain Dew to erase DNA after killing roommate in Daytona Beach.
Spoiler alert, it did not work.
You can watch this interrogation video on YouTube. Highly recommend it.
Did she talk to the cops?
It's weird. I don't see any warning signs here. Yeah, she had. It wasn't a bottle of Mountain Dew. It was just a fountain cup. You know, and they were like, "Oh, we've got the DNA," and she was like, "Oh, really?"
Oh.
And a lot of people get DUIs, and they not being able to drive a car, they start doing other things like riding horses or lawnmowers or whatever. But
Little
pro tip,
lowrider bikes.
none of that is okay. Any kind of moving vehicle is still a DUI.
Including a horse.
51-year-old man facing charges after driving Power Wheels Jeep under the influence.
Womp womp.
They go like, you could walk faster than them. Why would you not just walk?
Because he's high and drunk.
Unfortunately,
No photos, no video.
What
Maybe
if
we'll get
you're,
that body cam someday.
I think the one exception to that should be if you're passed out in the back of a wagon and you just tell the horse to take you home and the horse knows the way home. That's probably okay.
No, there's Amish have gotten caught doing that. It's still DUI.
Yeah. I don't know that it should be, but it has been.
I think we can expect people to just control themselves that much, right? I mean,
you would think. Yeah.
I think that's
A
an
range
okay
of
rule.
DD.
Yeah, just wait till you get home. And this is a crime where I just cannot imagine what would motivate it. Why would a human being do this? You would have to spend money to do this, right?
Yeah, the bear spray's not cheap.
Maybe they shoplifted it. I don't know.
At least 2 children suffer injuries after going down slides covered in bear spray.
There's,
So I
there's
guess
nothing to gain here.
They sprayed bear spray inside a slide and then just waited for kids to slide down the slide and then scream as they went through bear spray.
I don't know that they even got to witness it though.
It's on the TikTok. The TikTok.
So they're not even positive this happened, but they did find a can of bear spray in the garbage can nearby.
Wow.
So, and
Well, at
the
least-
children were definitely messed up.
They say at least they found it because then they could know how to treat it. Like before, they were probably like, "Oh, they're just messed up. We don't know what caused it."
Baffling. And if I were a billionaire and I read all these headlines, I understand. I think I might want to use my billions. Remember Sam Bankman-Fried's brother who tried to build his
island paradise.
getaway? Well, apparently that's not an uncommon thing.
Tech elites plot new invention in North Bay City.
They bought so much farmland, and they're going to build their own private city that's as big or bigger than San Francisco.
So they say. Now, the farmers in this area have caught on to them, and it's become a big conspiracy, which is not actually a conspiracy. This is happening. And they're trying to stand up against it. But these billionaires are offering them like 4 to 5 times more than the property value. So what are you going to do in that situation?
What, like if you all stood together, that would work. Because then you just say, yeah, go pounds down. But the issue is like, if one person sells it, then it's like, oh, now we're next to the mega city, and my crops are probably going to die or something.
And somebody's always going to be the
Cave.
scab.
Yeah.
The other thing about this
sucks.
is this land is farmland. It's zoned for farmland. It's not zoned for any kind of city.
Residential, yeah.
So they'll have to go through some legal loopholes here. And the way it works in California, they're probably going to have to get a vote from the locals. But they're betting that they can do that.
Or they could simulate votes.
You can't say that, Krista.
They can have the voting session at 1 p.m. on a Wednesday and then be surprised when no one shows up, like they did for some of the stuff for the Red River Gorge.
Well, the people who control Star Trek over the years have made bad decision after bad decision when it comes to the hearts and minds of their fans, who are rabid people, and the kind of people that you'd have to like beat with a stick to get away from Star Trek. But that's exactly what they're doing. They're just beating them with a stick.
Paramount DMCA's Star Trek fan project apparently deaf to the history of Star Trek.
Yeah, Paramount. This is just lost ball in high weeds. So no more Star Trek fan fiction is the takeaway from this, right?
Now you would think in the past we've seen Star Trek film projects where they would shut down. And you think, well, okay, maybe it's poor quality and they don't want that associated with their IP or whatever. This is a book, a free book.
The history of fan fiction, the term slash, which is like a pairing between two characters of the same gender, it came from the Star Trek fandom. It was originated there in the 70s because people would write slash fiction between Spock and Kirk.
Oh.
Yeah,
They originated the fandom phrase for that.
There is fanfic of Star Trek going back to the 1970s.
Right.
And they haven't handled it as bad as this.
So this was an untold part of Next Generation. This was the first, or the part of the Borg War where they lost a lot of people. So they wanted to tell the story of that horrible battle with the Borg. Paramount says no.
I really like fan fiction. Not so much slash fiction, but like there are some really good gap fillers for different franchises and stories and stuff. And it's really sad that so much of it's getting shut down.
Especially considering the quality of writing on the current Star Trek.
Yes,
yeah, a lot of series.
exactly. Maybe Paramount is actually working on a story about the people that have PTSD from that, because there aren't people that have PTSD in the Star Trek universe, at least not much, or at least that are not treated like a very far outlier from what they were experiencing.
Could it be that they read it and they were like, oh God, if people see this, ours is going to look so garbage in comparison?
It is entirely possible.
Well, big companies being in control of things is a problem, especially when those things are research and food safety, which is exactly what it seems we have here.
Revealed who aspartame safety panel linked to alleged Coca-Cola front group.
Now,
Basically, the people saying that aspartame is safe were linked to Coca-Cola. And so these people are saying, wait a minute, that's a version, that's an obvious conflict of interest, and this is not credible.
Chris, when you say who, I think people might be thinking of the classic rock band.
It's the World Health Organization.
It's the WHO.
Oh. Whatever. That's my first mispronunciation outside of the presidential candidate for Taiwan that I've
All you
had
need to
all
hear
episode.
is aspartame bad.
Right. So aspartame bad was the report, but then the WHO people who used to work for Coke and some still work for Coke, they came to the conclusion like, well, maybe aspartame a little bit bad, but based on the small amounts in Coke, it should be fine for everybody.
Just don't drink a lot of Coke.
Which might not be.
Yeah, nobody just drinks Coke, right? Don't come to Eastern Kentucky.
So maybe we shouldn't have those people doing those jobs while they're also doing the other jobs, or in fact, if they've ever done the other job. Now, Wendell, you had a mystery illness that we learned was caused by a pesky parasite. And we're now learning that more and more of this is happening, and it's not just the ticks.
Woman's mystery illness turns out to be a 3-inch snake parasite in her brain.
Yeah, it turns out. I mean, how crazy. It's like, okay, we need to have a surgery because there's this weird mass in your brain. Oh, good. It's a snake as opposed to a tumor.
So Australia, because everything in Australia is trying to kill you, they have pythons, which, you just share the world with pythons. And she apparently forged some edible foods from the python habitat, which had eggs for this guy in it. I wonder why it chose the brain.
I think it was sort of rare because I think normally they don't go to the brain. But the researchers who found it, or like the medical personnel, were like, "You're not gonna believe this!" Like they sent it to the the local labs or whatever.
They clickbaited their
Technicians.
fellow
Yeah.
medical people. Well, here's a technology that will certainly be good for all of us. And I'm looking forward to this. I mean, what a great, you don't have to clean it, right?
Yeah.
Just automatic cleaning.
This is a horrible photo. Nothing sticks. New silicon-infused 3D printed toilet bowl repels all. Is that bubble gum in that photo?
I don't know what that, it looks like toothpaste on the left, right?
Yeah, toothpaste and then bubble gum? What are you
Well,
people
you gotta
putting
have
down your
strong feelings.
toilets?
Maybe that's non-human intelligence. That's one of the things they measure. Like, oh, when the civilization develops this level of waste disposal technology, then we can reveal ourselves.
So aside from not having to clean it, they claim that you can use way less water. And the great thing about this is, like, you can spray certain sprays to get the same effect, but they wear off. But the way this is penetrated with oil, it never gets to the surface, but it's still good enough to keep the surface slick somehow.
What happens when you put this in a landfill?
Well, it's really dangerous to use less water because the inside of your sewer pipes are not coated with this material, and it's going to be a bad time if you don't use enough water. We've already got a big enough problem where modern toilets don't, it's like a 1 gallon flush, but a lot of plumbing in older homes, like you get the old cast iron 4-inch stuff, that's designed for like a 5 gallon flush, and you really need a 5 gallon flush, otherwise your pipes are just it's gonna end badly.
Are you saying there's going to be poop stuck in the pipes?
Yeah.
Is that what you're implying?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that was the unspoken message. And this is a disappointment in that every news article I've looked at doesn't have a great picture.
We tried to find this on the podcast and there were no photos or videos.
I guess, and it's the one on the left, which to me is not totally invisible, right?
Maybe it is in like a water environment where they're not taking a photo for an article. Mm. How scientists engineered a see-through squid with its brain in plain view.
They CRISPR'd it.
Look how little he
They
is.
CRISPR'd it so much.
So small. That's a paperclip next to it.
That's adorable.
A lot of CRISPRing.
And sometimes, we just can't give up on something. Once it's in the culture, we need it, we believe in it, and no amount of proof otherwise will make us stop.
Monster hunters descend on Scotland for biggest Loch Ness search in 50 years.
They're going to use all sorts of really advanced technology to find him.
It'd be cool if they found the bones. Like, oh, you just missed him. He's dead now.
Next week, we find out that Square Enix is suing for them using the phrase monster hunters.
Oh.
I think that's who made that game. Maybe not.
I didn't care for it.
Remember how terrible that was?
I didn't enjoy it. I know some people do. I think one of our editors really likes that game.
Now, the question here for me is, why would you buy fish that are this expensive and just put them outdoors? This seems insane.
Otter unmasked as Chester Hotel's 100K koi carp thief. People have outdoor koi.
But $2,000 or pounds
that is a lot
of fish?
Yeah.
This guy didn't even realize the quality of the sushi that he was consuming.
I know.
Is
for people
there
who
like a city otter? Like, what? Where was this at? That this was a thing.
There are river otters. That's a thing.
Well, he knew that, that was he probably walked for that for a while, right? You put in some steps to get those delicious fish.
Can't be bad. Let's people who have koi ponds around here, like, you kind of have to watch out for. You have to make sure it's deep enough so they can overwinter in it safely. But also you have to have like rocks and ledges in your pond so that your fish can hide under there from like predators like hawks or raccoons. Well,
they pointed out that they went to a lot of trouble to protect these fish. They had all kinds of like countermeasures and whatever, but this guy was just too good.
He's a river otter. He's smart.
Now, the exact opposite of taking care of your animals would be this man.
Man stopped by U.S. police for driving with huge bull in passenger seat.
Look at the size of it.
Man, this made the news everywhere.
Look how happy he is.
I mean, he cut his windshield in half.
There's like a gate there. Do you see that?
Yeah, it's actually a gate that they use for like the bull riders and stuff.
Yeah, they custom welded it.
It seems like it would be cheaper just to hire somebody, right? With a trailer.
Maybe he has to move him a lot. Maybe he likes to ride in the car like that.
Oh, did
No,
you see that?
That was a
he
good.
got off with a warning, which isn't too bad.
Look at this. The police car. Let me see if I can time this. The police car, the paint has come off and it just says lice.
Oh, armor blast. Oh.
That's what you get in a small town. And I really did not quite understand this, but what I take away from this is for some reason the Saudi Arabians hate dogs.
It's not common. Iranian realtor arrested for selling apartment to a dog.
I said Saudi Arabia, I'm sorry.
But in the Middle East, I have a friend who lived over there, and she said that, like, dogs are not common as pets over there. Like, they're starting to be a little bit more, but, like, dogs are considered, like, a dirty animal.
Unclean is how they put it. And the crime that they're convicting this person for is, like, offending the religion. Oh, normalize the violation of society's moral values.
That doesn't seem like that was that.
Do you think that was like, why did they do it? You think that was just a PR stunt?
Yeah, I would
Maybe.
think. Yeah.
So yeah, crocodiles, turtles, snakes, lizards, cats, mice, rabbits, dogs, and other unclean animals. What animals do they consider clean?
Probably not very many. I mean, most animals are kind of nasty. I love my animals, but they're gross.
Well, it would be gross if you had animals living inside of you, but wait, maybe you want them.
Hookworms successfully prevent type 2 diabetes in human trial. Defeat diabetes with this one weird trick.
I mean, maybe. This actually makes a lot of sense because metabolically, we've been messing with things for a long time, and it turns out, oh, wait a minute. Things living inside us might not be a terrible idea.
So what causes all these horrible internal things is inflammation. You really want to stop inflammation. It turns out the hookworm has a special ability to lower your inflammation to try to hide its living in your stomach.
That it's infected you.
So its stealth field actually improves your health.
Well, it probably causes other problems, though, right?
They said not.
Huh.
They said that all these people in the trial had better sleep, they lost weight, their blood sugar went way down, and they said their mood and depression decreased. Everything got better. At the end of the trial, they offered to give them the anti-parasitic drug. One guy accepted out of all the people, and that's because he had a surgery coming up, and his doctor wouldn't perform the surgery while he was in an experimental program.
Wow.
That surgeon didn't know the states, and it's like, all right, well, I'll just, I guess I'll do the surgery, and then I'll get some more hookworms.
Yeah. Apparently you want 20 hookworms, and hookworms don't breed in your stomach. The eggs always pass out of you. So as long as you don't get the eggs back in, you'll always have the 20 original hookworms.
That seems like a win-win. It almost seems like nature was like building it to work this way.
Except you might eventually get the hookworms in you again, and then you have a bunch of hookworms, right?
Right. You have to be very careful about your poop. But I mean, I'm already doing that.
Yeah, that's true.
And cats love fish, but that's weird, right? Because they're desert creatures.
Why do cats love tuna so much? Scientists may finally know. What's the answer?
Umami.
Taste receptors, yeah.
Oh.
Cats cannot taste sweet, but they can have hyper taste for umami. So anything with MSG in it, your cat is going to love.
Cricket will eat
That
just
explains a
about
lot
anything.
about the human food that mom gives her cat.
She gives it a lot of Chinese food.
Yeah, and she's like, why does it like this so much? Now we know.
Now we know.
And apparently tuna has not only that, but some other things that like accentuate it. And it's just cat crack.
I have to put Cricket in the laundry room when I eat sushi because he will try to get it. And he's very brazen about it.
It's his addiction. He's been bred for that his whole life. And I was really, I saw this and I was like, wow, that's impressive. But then you see the numbers, you're like, those are rookie numbers, really.
Jump roping cat breaks Guinness World Record. A 13-year-old cat, though, that's a good age.
But that is 9 jumps per minute.
Yeah, but cats are not like dogs that want to please you. That's impressive for a cat.
I don't know. I've seen cats on those like variety show, game show type things. They do incredible things.
I don't know. Dog agility is more. I bet a dog could destroy this cat at jump rope.
Yeah, sure. Slave mentality is what that is.
It's also impressive this is a 13-year-old cat. So this is basically an elderly cat that is doing jump rope for treats.
How old do cats get typically? They get a lot older than dogs.
I think 15, 16, you're pushing it.
Okay.
But they can go above 20.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Mom's cat just turned 21.
Oh, it's ready to go drink. You got to go party with it later.
It's not doing well.
And finally, I thought this was the most adorable creature. I don't know why, but the fact that it's different is somehow just makes it so special.
Spotless arrival, rare giraffe without coat pattern is born at Tennessee Zoo. I just think baby giraffes are cute anyway because they're so gangly and goofy looking.
Look how adorable he is.
Yeah. The mom's like looking for the spot. Where are your spots, son? You don't have any spot. Put your spots on.
Yeah, what about the father?
Oh, he's got some questions right now.
You ain't no son of mine. But there is no giraffe without spots, so
it's interesting. I wonder what caused that mutation.
I don't know, but I hope there's more of them.
Oh, that would be great. It's like wobble dogs. When you get a random mutation, it's like, ooh.
The next one's gonna have 6 legs.
Pursue that one.
Wasn't there was a marketing campaign a few years ago for miniature giraffes? Like you could buy miniature giraffes for like $600 that were the size of like a poodle.
That was the plot line in Jurassic Park with baby elephants.
That seems like you know how the tiny dogs always have terrible health problems.
Yeah.
Imagine those tiny giraffes just always being in pain. Their legs not being able to support any kind of weight.
The elephant in Jurassic Park, it was like, what they didn't tell people when they were talking about it was like, A, it had health problems, and the other was that it was full of rage all the time, and it would constantly try to like get out of its cage and like hit stuff, which was then a horrible foreshadowing for the dinosaurs later on.
Maybe I've been genetically modified.
Yeah.
It's the rage. Oh no! It turns out it was what they put in the Eastern Kentucky water.
It's the aspartame.
All right, chat. That is it for this week. We will see you guys in the next one, hopefully, assuming nothing else goes wrong. Bye.